So good morning, everybody. This is the April session of the LabLogic Innovators. I know we still have a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to show you there is a website, lablogicinnovators.com, and it's where you can find, basic information, agendas, and our time schedule. We also have an events tab and a way to get in touch with us. So when we scroll down, this is a collaboration between LabVine, Awesome Numbers, Elevate QC, and all of the lab professionals who are interested in reducing error rates and improving their lab efficiency and lowering the risk to patients. So we're working with Zoe Brooks. She's the co-founder of Awesome Numbers, and she's also the president and chief product officer of Elevate QC. We want to advance laboratory quality and risk management through critical analysis of QC and risk management practices. So these sessions are aimed at improving policies and procedures, that haven't been improved in 50 years. So I have a timer on the website where you can count down to where we are. Notice that we're meeting on a Wednesday this month. And next month's meeting is on May 27th. Should be the last Tuesday of every month. We're going to cover a sneak peek at the M.O.R.E quality educational site. It's going to provide you competency in the process of mathematically optimized risk evaluation. That's what M.O.R.E stands for. And Zoe's got a great program for us today. These are just, this is what came in your newsletter. You should have us whitelisted. If you need help whitelisting us, that's just reach out to me and I can get that for you. I just wanted you to see the website, and I'm going to leave it running so that each session is there. And maybe even put a link to the replay for it. Eventually, we'll double check with our people in power and authority. But I wanted you to also see that you can come to the events page and you can register for any of our upcoming sessions. You have to register for each one right now until the way I'm booking them right now, you have to register for each one. Let's just put it that way. But then there's also a contact form at the bottom. So I think we're right at 10:01. And as I was showing you, we're going to be hearing from Zoe Brooks this morning. And there she is, our intrepid product manager, co-founder, head bean pusher. She's globally recognized expert in laboratory quality management, AI integration. She's got over a decade. Zoe, I think that might be a typo.
You could put like 5 in front of that, but it's embarrassing.
We're not sure if that's a good thing or not.
So anyway, I don't know. I got my first job when I was 19 years old at Sick Children's Hospital in histology, which is the opposite of what we're doing with all these numbers. But a long, long time ago. So I've seen the evolution of this, and I've seen what's not evolved, which is even more frightening. So yes, I come with a wealth of experience.
So we're going to, I'm going to stop sharing now and you take it away.
Okie dokie. Welcome, folks. Thank you for joining. I want to remind you, this is a conversation. It is not intended to be a polished webinar. It's an opportunity. That's interesting. There we are. Okay, it's an opportunity to discuss the evolution of quality control and quality management and risk management beyond where it's been for the last 50 years, because it finally occurred to me. I started, gosh, many years ago, bringing these problems to the attention of the powers that be, and they were all busy doing something else. And it finally occurred to me that if this is going to change, it's up to me to do something about it. So with the help of my awesome team from Elevate QC, we are going to do something about it and bring you tools to bring a big paradigm shift and change to the world of lab quality. So onward and upward. Today we're looking first at, again, a sneak peek of these online courses. I had hoped to have them ready for you for today. That did not quite happen. But we're going to take a look at what they will be and then go into points to ponder. What questions does your current QC answer, and how helpful would it be to add these features to it? And then how would it help you to significantly reduce the number of false positives and leave time then for Q&A and discussions? So the sneak peek at the M.O.R.E quality educational site, and we finally decided to go with M.O.R.E quality, which Sherry said is the process of mathematically optimized risk evaluation. I like this because it's mathematical, and everybody can do math where everybody hates statistics. So, and it updates us from statistical quality control to clinical risk management. We're going to talk about the fundamentals and formats of these courses, go through the topics that I've planned and have a little bit in process. How do you feel about proving competency with an 80% standard to pass? It worries me that if somebody gets 65% on an exam, they get a pass. I want somebody who passes these courses to truly understand them. How do you guys feel about that? I think Denise and Pam, you're the only ones we've got here this morning. So let's just chat. How would you feel about taking a course with an 80% pass rate? Now, let me just tell you, in each section of the course, there are quizzes that you can take as often as you like until you're competent with them. And then the final exam is a selection of those quiz questions that you can only answer once. The trick that I've built into this is that all of the numerical questions use random number generators. So you have to understand the mathematics in order to answer the question. You can't just write down, and I've had students do this, you know, I thought the answer to question 12 was C, so I just wrote that down and I got everything wrong. Well, yeah, the question changes as you go along. So just open up your mics, Denise and Pam, and how do you feel about 80% competency?
I think that's a totally reasonable ask. I mean, you're really wanting people to understand, and that threshold would give us some sense that they do. For when we do competency assessment, just like what's required for like CAP, we do an 80% pass rate on all the quizzes that we provide our team. And then if you don't pass at 80%, we'll do some re-education and reassessment. So we already kind of use that as our standard for demonstrating competence.
Good. Glad to hear it. Pam, any comments?
I don't know if you can hear me or not. I agree, Denise. We do the same thing for our competency.
Super. Then I feel comfortable going ahead with that. And then we're going to go ahead, we're going to play with an interactive graphic that you can use to help understand probabilities of patient values failing TEA or QC values exceeding your QC rule limits. So as I said, each lesson, there'll be 3 or 4 sections in each course. There are lessons, there are quizzes, there are calculators, and there are discussion forums which are scored. So you have to go in and comment, and I go in and I grade the discussion forums. It's modeled exactly on the course that I taught at Rutgers University with this format. So when you come out of this, you understand it. And if you pay for your staff to take it, you know that they've advanced their knowledge here. So there's a quiz of 10 questions with each section. You can repeat the quizzes in the sections, but the numbers will change. You can prove your competency with calculators, and the discussion forums are scored, and you need an 80% pass rate. We give certificates. We're not yet registered with anybody like PACE. That will come in due time if we find that that it's really important to people. So the first course I'm working on is the one we previewed last month, Elevating Statistical QC to Clinical Risk Management. It goes through just an overview of understanding Westgard rules and Six Sigma, why you can't evaluate acceptability of patient risk with sigma metrics, total error, and QC chart review. And these are important to know what goes wrong. And then it gives a quick look at the process of mathematically optimized risk evaluation. Last month, I showed you this little graphic, and everybody teaches this, and you go back and you memorize it. However, I want to give you more capability than just memorizing these values. There are questions in the course like this one, where a QC sample has a mean of 100 and an SD of 1.0. What are the odds that a point at 101.65 is not part of the same population? What does that mean? And what about a point of 102? So now we have a tool. Whoops, went the wrong way. Well, actually, I've got to go here anyway. Now we have a tool to answer those questions. If your mean value is 100 and your SD is 101.65, you can click on this and it will tell you that that gives you an SDI of 1.645, 5% are above this value and 95% are below it. If your value was 102, you would be 2 SD above it, and 2.275% are above this value. So you can use this calculator to translate the questions into what are you trying to answer. When you go forward from that, to the next question. So this lets you answer things like, what are the probabilities that this point is part of the same population? You've got a mean of 100. If your point comes in at 102, then you know that 95% of your results, 95% of that population will be outside your range. And I hope that will make sense with the calculator, and we won't know that until we get things working and people answering the questions. And then bring to life the fact that you can't, people will add more QC and think they're improving the method. Changing your QC process does absolutely nothing to improve the analytical process. And if your method has already failed, then you can't detect failure. It's already happened. You have to get the method into being stable and reliable to detect when it changes from being stable and reliable. And the margin for error is the magical, it's a statistic, but we'll give it to you. You don't need to calculate it because that's a tricky one. But it tells you the number of standard deviations your mean can shift before you fail the allowable error limit. And that's the size of the shift you need to detect. Knowing that tells you what rules you have to use. Here's another sample question. You have your same sample, well, it's another sample perhaps. It has a true value of 100 and an allowable error limit of plus or minus 4. The mean is 102 and the SD is 1. What is the sigma value? Who can calculate that in the next 10 seconds? 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, gone. The little trick to doing that is, your allowable error limit would be 100 plus or minus 4. So the upper allowable error limit is 104. Your measured mean is 102. There are 2 units between the measured mean and the allowable error limit. The sigma value is simply the number of SDs between where you are now and the allowable error limit. So the sigma value is 2. And if the formula they use to calculate sigma is incredibly confusing. If they had just told you It's the difference between the closest allowable error limit and the current measured mean. Divide that by the SD, you know where you are. What they're doing when they say it's the allowable error limit minus the bias, that simply tells you where the mean value is. So it's the mean, the difference between the mean and the allowable error limit divided by the SD. Okay, so your mean value is 102, your TEA is 104, your true value is 100, the lower allowable error limit is 96. When you show your values here, now you can click on the 2 and it will tell you that there are 2.275% of results that fall above the upper allowable error limit. What percent fall below? Well, it's 1.5 miles or 6 SDs, whichever you want to express it at. Between 102 and 96, there are 6 units divided by an SD of 1, so it's 6 SDs to the lower allowable error limit. What we want to do in the courses is teach people the logic so that when they look at these numbers, they understand what they mean. And that's what we're hoping to prove in the courses. And I am really hoping that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, you'll get an email saying the first course is available, and as a LabLogic Innovator member, here's your 50% off coupon. That's my hope. We'll see if we get there. But you can do the same thing. You can say, if my SDI value is 0, I will know that 50% of my results fall outside the allowable error limit. So that little interactive calculator, I'm hoping, will bring some of this to life, and we'll be creating more of those with the help of artificial intelligence and a very intelligent young man in Egypt who's helping me with these things. We'll have more of these little calculators for you to work with. And I like things that are interactive like that. So here are the topics that I have planned. This is the first one, which I hope will be ready in 2 to 3 weeks. I'm also planning a course on introducing mathematically optimized risk evaluation, which gives you a step-by-step process to enable risk management. Costs and savings associated with QC design, how your QC design drives your true and false positive QC flags, how QC based on risk management reduces the cost and harm. So this one is totally focused on the cost of error and the benefits of improving quality control within the lab. There's another course I was thinking of just based on case studies. Here's how it works, here's how it works, here's what these people saw, here's what these people saw, here's what happened with this method, etc. Then one on making sense of peer data, because the SDI and the CVI have been around for over 50 years. They give you some meaningful information, but people put a little bit too much faith in them. They just tell you if you're in with your peer group, but if the whole peer group is bad, you feel just great. So the better your peer is, the harder it is for you to be part of it. The worse the peer group is, you're sort of warm and happy in a pile of poop, as they say. So, and then using peer data to troubleshoot your in-lab problems. Risk management with Carl Parle and the PIPs. So current acceptable risk level, potential acceptable risk level, and the PIPs. Patients, physicians, institutions, and society. Somewhere I have a graphic of a rock band with, on the drums, it says Carl Parle and the PIPs. And I'll work that back into that course for sure. And another one that I'd really enjoy doing, lies my QC guru taught me. Why Sigma does not work in medical labs, and why Westgard rules don't always detect failure. We're planning to introduce, each course will take you 1 to 2 hours. They'll be available at LabVine and at our Moodle site for more quality. We're planning a course price of $99 and offering LabLogic Innovators a 50% off coupon. Now, opening it up to you, I've already have course 1 in place. Which of these, would you think you and your staff would find most helpful and beneficial, and what would you be most likely to sign up for? Denise, want to go first?
Sure, I definitely would be interested most in number 5, the making sense of peer data for my team, especially like my chemistry lead and for myself.
Okay. Send us a message, or Sherry, please make a note. I don't know, did you get, I think I had sent out once the chapter from my book on peer data. And I'm not sure you got that, but we can send that to you. And what I'd like you to do for me is to review that chapter, because that will become the basis, and then we'll update it for the course. But if you would review that chapter for me and say, this makes sense, this helps, I need more information here, and here's the other questions I'd like answered, that would be extremely helpful. Hopefully,
yeah, I'd love to do that.
Okay. Pam, what interests you?
1 and 2, certainly. Number 5 is, again, pure data, because we do so much of that. And number 7 kind of intrigues me.
Cool. Okay. I'm going to narrow that down then as I start producing further courses. And it's going to take us a little bit of technical whatnots to get these set up, but I think I can have them in the right format to get them on LabLogic Innovators as well. Yeah, I couldn't resist throwing in number 7, because there's so many misconceptions out there. I think it would be fun to do.
Yeah, I like that one too. I think it will be really helpful.
Cool. Okay. So this is our objective in life, why I'm doing all of this and why you guys are here. We want to manage risk, not stats. And at
He'll be right back. We love it when the internet is interneting. It's taking a break right now. So she's going to say, at the least, the ability of the QC procedures should detect medically allowable error, and that it should be evaluated. Okay, she's off altogether, so she's going to rejoin. So at the moment, we're back to, we're going to share this one. So if you guys want to look at the dates coming up and see if your calendars are clear, you can register ahead. So we just come here. You can click on this, or you can go to events. So you'll be able to register.
I have a group of lab professionals that I participate in. Is this something that I could pass on to them if they're interested in participating?
Definitely. We just need the NDA.
Okay.
We would love that. And we've also got, have you guys joined the LinkedIn group?
I did.
I know you did, Denise. I wonder if Pulab, did you? And I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. And Pam, have you joined the LinkedIn group?
Yes, I have. Mhm.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm in and out of there, not very often.
And if I shared this with this group of lab folks, what would be the best place to send them to like sign the NDA and do all the, well, that piece, I guess, before they were able to register?
I will get that to you.
Thank you.
I will get that out this afternoon, actually. Because this website that I've set up doesn't have the NDA here, whereas if you go to LabVine, it does.
Okay.
And so there's also replays that are going to be posted. I send out the links for that. Oh my. Zoe must have really been,
Blipping, huh?
yeah. So let's see. So I've texted her. And I don't have her presentation, so I wouldn't be able to go ahead without her. Besides that, I don't know all the technicalities that she knows and has invented. John Hopkins might be able to speak to us, but he's probably traveling. What do you think, John?
Hi, sorry, I was struggling to find the people. So we've lost Zoe now, have we?
For the moment, anyway, she usually glitches for about 10 seconds and then comes right back. But she's even dropped out of the meeting altogether.
Okay. Sidebar, so I couldn't tell.
May have to reschedule if she doesn't come back in about 5 minutes. If everybody's okay with that.
Why don't
Or
we
what I
just
will have her
quickly
do is go ahead and finish her presentation and send out the replay. But she'd really rather have your input. This has been very, very helpful and very informative.
Yeah. So where are we at with the what is your opinion there? I'm asking Denise and anybody else who's joined the meeting. What is your opinion of what you've seen today with the training materials?
Well, I'm super excited that you all are putting the time into that, because I think when you go to lab school, it really just does not go into depth at all, and you just have to kind of learn on the job, and you are kind of depending on someone being relatively interested in the statistical analysis, but then they're just kind of piecing together all of this information that exists on the web without really a concise resource for learning best practice. And this could make a really big difference.
I think the general consensus is that we do it this way because we've always done it this way.
Right.
I think there's a lot of we hear that a lot as well. As I said, this is something that I'm in two minds about, actually, because I like to understand things. I like the training. I like that as a concept. But I think we also need to give people the actual tools to be able to execute and actually interrogate the data properly. And I don't think there are too many good tools around for doing kind of a tool Anyone?
Well, we're batting 1,000 here. John, you're glitching now. Can everyone hear him, or is it just maybe it's just me?
No, he was glitching a bunch when
It's
just-
Yeah, I'm actually
Oh,
traveling
man.
at the moment, so it's 100% surprising.
Okay, there he is. He's back. Can you kind of repeat the last couple of things you said, John?
But the thing, a lot of the times, particularly for quality, doing things a certain way because they've always done them that way, and nobody can really understand why. So the analytical techniques, the precision, the accuracy have all improved. The proficiency testing schemes and all of this good stuff, and the traceability of reference materials, all of that has improved massively. But the statistical approach to testing whether or not what you're doing is appropriate, correct, and also relevant for the measurements you're making. So one thing is this instrument is performing at a level, but also what does that mean in terms of patient data? So how accurately do you need and how precisely do you need to be able to provide those measurements? So I think there's two parts to this. One is having the understanding on how to improve things, and the other is having the tools. And that's what Zoe's just alluded to there, is to bring both. Did you hear me that time?
Yes.
Excellent.
I did find that here the chapter that Zoe had sent out. I guess it was back in. It was in March. She sent a peer chapter about peer data.
Yeah, that was from her book. Yeah. Okay, but I think a training course and product are better than just having a book. The thing is,
I absolutely agree.
The book just tends to become very dry.
Yeah, I'm a very tactile learner, so if I don't have like something to interact with, it tends to go in one ear and out the other, unfortunately, with my brain chemistry.
No, I don't think you're that unusual. I think everybody's the same. I think most people to a degree are exactly the same. Still no Zoe?
Nope. And I have no answer on text, so there may be something bigger going on than just a glitch. So guys, if there are questions you have for Zoe, this would be a perfect time to ask them. And I will make sure that she gets them when she gets back online. So I know that Denise, you've been actively working with us with your data. Pam, have you any interest in sending in your data?
Well, right now I'm just kind of working, I've kind of stepped away from being a chemistry manager and being more part-time helping labs, so I don't have access to data. It's something I wish I did, but my present position, I don't.
Okay. But you say you're helping labs?
Yeah, from the lab that I used to work for, and just kind of helping. I've been in lab work for 40 years, and just kind of extremely frustrated all that time with being able to do QC better. And so I've been able to hopefully take time now to kind of really dig into things, and be able to help labs, whatever labs need.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm not a lab professional. But when I met Zoe and she showed me what she's working on, I was flabbergasted because I just assume that my lab results are right. And I think the rest of the population does as well. And it takes quite a leap to make it to the point where you think to yourself, gee, I wonder if I should have that test redone because maybe it was wrong. Nobody thinks about their lab tests being wrong. So what we find, and that's where Elevate QC comes in, is that the QC processes that are being employed, and very loosely employed because there's not a global standard, it's technology from over 50 years ago, and it wasn't even designed for clinical labs. It was designed for pagers. So the more we get this awareness raised, so even if you're not actively in a lab or in a position of making decisions about what your lab is going to do for QC, raising the awareness of a new system, a better system, will really be helpful. And another thing that we have to add to this is that it doesn't replace what you do. It layers on to what you do. We can advise you on what you should do differently to get better results. Am I right, John?
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm a bit slow getting to the mute button.
Well, I figured you're muted, so we have to build that in when we're doing things by online, right?
Yeah, no, that's completely right. I mean, a lot of the work I was doing with people diagnostics based around switching, let's say, from radio immunoassay to mass spectrometry to improve the precision, to improve the accuracy. So if you're able to measure something, if you need to measure something more accurately and precisely, and you are not challenging your human spirit, then you're almost wasting your time. The extra investment decision that lost because you're not able to prove that that is routinely available, that precision is actually consistent. And I think that there's a paper that was published 2021, and it was a review. It was initially a blind questionnaire to 21 major hospitals in North America. So all the big ones that you can think of, Mount Sinai, Johns Hopkins, all of those were in this list. And frankly, what I saw with the QC processes was pretty scary. Most of them just had one or a 2-2S room according to the test, and some of them didn't really have a process on what to do if their QC failed. So quite a few of them admitted that they would rerun a failed QC a few times until that QC passed. So there's a whole bunch of things, even at a very high level, that ranges nice to Europe. And so we're a different regulatory framework for all of that. So there are some better guidelines, but still, on actual things like total error, with ISO 15189, you're supposed to do a risk evaluation for every single diagnostic test that you are putting into service. And actually, nobody really does that. The risk assessments are extremely vague and not at all quantitative. There's no quantitative angle to it at all. So there is a global problem, and I think that the US has some things tied down a little better than Europe, and Europe has some other things, but in this area. But I think that overall, I think there are a lot more inconsistencies within North America with specifically lab QC and the limits placed on it, and what those limits should be.
So let's just quickly go, because this is the fascinating part we're getting into, is the drill down of Denise's data in January to look at the number of medically unreliable results per year. So what we saw was that, you know, again, 90% of your 90% of your methods are producing 0 errors per year, and another couple are producing only 1. These are producing 2 to 20. These are 20 to 100. These are 100 to 1,000, and these are over 1,000 per year. So you can drill down on any one of these categories and say what is going on. And when you drill down, you see what analytes, what QC samples are in each category of MUR per year. When you come down to the over 1,000, it's your calciums, and it tells you, do you need to improve accuracy? And if you do, here's your mean now, here's the recommended new mean. Do you need to improve precision? Here's your current SD and the recommended SD. And it gives you the likelihood of medically unreliable results as 1 in so many weeks, days, or hours. So that if you want to go into administration and say, this is going to tell me something I really don't know now, is it's giving me the number of errors per year or per day. And if you've got an instrument you want to replace, you say, I tried out this new instrument. Every one of the processes is producing 1 error every 25 years. And our existing processes, we've got, you know, so many methods that where we measure the error rate in days or weeks or even hours. And people understand that where they don't understand sigma. So
when we're talking about medically, I'm sorry to jump in. When we're talking about medically unreliable results, are we talking about results that would affect the patient's, well, would be likely to affect how the patient is treated? Not just that it's not correct, but that it's not correct to the point where it's going to cause them to be treated incorrectly.
And that is why you need a medical goal instead of a CLIA limit.
Gotcha.
Okay. If you sit down with your medical director, like when I first started this, what I said to my lab director is, when would the doctors react differently? So, and take calciums. CLIA says you can be plus or minus 1. The reference range for calcium is like 1.2 units.
Yeah.
So the median or the middle of that reference range is 9.5. According to CLIA, you can report a result at 8.5 or 10.5, and it's fine. Where those are 2 very different answers. And it's going to cause all sorts of different action on part of the doctor. But then if you go on the other hand to biological variation, you might be too tight, and that's what you've done here. And that's why it's saying all of these errors are failing the biological variation allowable error limit, but are they failing, and they're not failing the CLIA limit, but what is your medical allowable error limit?
Right.
And if you set a medical allowable error limit, and that's the missing piece of the puzzle. Okay, and then I wanted to show them, and we're going to talk about this. This is a preview of what we're going to talk about next month, because these are your calcium patients. So there's a problem we identified with the calcium. The next question you're going to ask is, how does it impact my patients? These are the patient results from outpatient or day surgery, where you would expect the patients to be generally normal. You would want 95% of these patients to fall in the reference range. And even if you widen that reference range, I think it's 8.7 to 10.4, you know, there is no way there's 95% of the patients inside that reference interval.
Right.
So the reference interval is incorrect for these patients or this method because you've got way too many abnormal patients. And the truly shocking thing is that the inpatients and the outpatients have a totally distinctly different reference interval. And that is bizarre. I don't know what would differentiate your ins and outs so distinctly. I want to go back next and separate the same day surgery, because outpatients, the doctor suspects something's wrong, maybe. But same day surgery, those guys should be normal. But this is weird, that your different source of patients is something happening in transit. Can something happen in transit?
For some, like our outpatient population, generally we have kind of two buckets, some that are coming from doctors' offices that are transported by courier, and then some that are collected here at our draw station in the hospital. So there's, limited delay in when we receive the specimen.
But that doesn't normally affect calcium, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I did a study like this in another lab, and sure enough, like close to 95% of their patients fell into the normal range. And that's not what we're seeing here at all. Well, we can't hear you, John.
Can you hear me?
No. You're really, really faint.
Well, I'm going to ask anyway. Do you have maybe a difference in blood tubes at those different sites?
Different what?
I'm sorry, a difference in tubes?
Yeah.
Potentially.
That would be strange.
We have two different, well, we don't separate it out. Some people might be sending plasma, some might be sending serum. Some could be using one manufactured tube versus another.
Are they using the SSTs? And that goes back a million years, the serum separator tubes?
Usually, yes.
Yeah. I don't know if that, it's a consistent problem.
Right.
I don't know.
Over 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you look at, there's your outpatients and there's your inpatients. Those are totally different reference intervals.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it by percent, it's the same thing. You had a lot more outpatients, but look at this, 25%, 75% of your outpatients are abnormally high. You look at it by location, look at the difference here. Your outpatients are less than 2% abnormal low, and your inpatients are 17%. What are these guys? What are these recurring and observation people? Who are they?
Recurring accounts are for oncology population.
Okay, and observation?
Observation, I think those are almost like people from after surgery, and they just kind of stick around for a little while. But I'll have to get a little more clarification on that, because where I pulled the data from, I'm not sure where it's pulling that location. So I can definitely drill down on that outpatient versus same day surgery population. Like some of those could be from clinics that we would expect abnormals from. So I could do drill down by PCP or something.
Yeah. We're going to work on this and present.
Yeah.
This is going to be a large focus of next month, because I think this is I read an article just recently about, a chloride problem on one instrument over a period of time. This is really something that's worth looking into and publishing, I think. Because
Agreed. It's fascinating.
Clinical problem.
Mm-hmm.
And totally different than what we saw in another location.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at, these are your different populations. Look at that outpatient one. 50% of them are abnormal. The observation people, who you would expect to be, at least they come in the middle of the normal range.
Right.
Observation and emerge hit the mid of the normal range better than anybody else. But it is a strange thing. So we're definitely going to work on that over the next month. The other questions that we can answer is, how effective is your existing QC process to detect a change that would create unacceptable risk? And similar to, now wait a minute, I think I neglected to show you something here. No, I did, it's okay. Okay, so we talk about how effective is your existing QC, how many medically unreliable results would be avoided with each failure event with the recommended QCP improvements, and you can gain a lot here. So if the methods fail, and you had 2 or 3 methods that fail each month, did you hear me when I was talking about, seeing when the methods went from grade A to grade F? Sound familiar? No. Okay.
Well, we've discussed that kind of in the
Yeah,
past.
the trick is here that now we can see from month to month. And the question that I was answering is, do the QC processes that we recommend detect the failure when it occurs?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer I've found in those cases is yes, whereas the lab QC process, the existing QC process, doesn't.
Right.
The other fascinating thing is how many false positives could be eliminated each year or each time period. How would your lab benefit if you eliminate 20 hours currently wasted on false positives each month? What could you do with that 20 hours?
So many things.
Good.
I feel like for us, like one of the reasons that we've been kind of stuck in the past with our QC is because, every time that I'm like, okay, well, let's, this method should be performing in this way. Like, why do we have our range set so wide? Like, that doesn't make sense with how it's supposed to be performing. And then they're like, well, then we're going to get a bunch of QC flags that don't actually affect patient results if it's outside of that. So why would we bother troubleshooting that?
Yes, and the beauty of this Elevate QC software is it works like a flight simulator. It lets people actually test those theories. There is a fear that worldwide, if I set my SDs more narrow, I'll get false positives. And it's not true. What you need to do is narrow your SDs and expand your QC rule. Get away from the 1-2S rule. You can use a 1-3S or a 3.5S, and it really doesn't happen, but people are afraid of those false positives.
Right.
So if we can mirror that, and that's part of that first look program that we can look at, is you can say, if you did it this way, you would not get more false positives. You actually would eliminate false positives. But that's another thing that would be interesting to talk about, and we'll go into that more next month, is, how would your lab benefit with 20 hours? Because people think, if I can't replace a staff member, I'm not saving, but you can do so much better with those 20 hours in the month. So our first look program says we've got 20 analytes, mainly from chemistry, but some hematology and a couple of coag, that you can send in your data and say, how much would I benefit? And then from the first look program, if you decide, you can go into the early adopter program, which gets you into, yes, I want to use this software. Introducing more quality. New logo. Didn't take long to make, but it's new and I like it. Okay. Q&A and discussion next month, a deeper look at calcium quality, tricks and traps in reference interval studies. I might even invite a guest speaker next month to talk about reference intervals from EP Evaluator, because they have a module for reference interval studies, and maybe they can help us work through this, because this is a very fascinating study, and to have that software available and look at the data, I think would give us some benefit.
Yeah.
Cool. And we're going to look at, I actually did a poster back in 2017 on the impact of TEA selection on calciums. Oh, Sherry, please make a note. We'll send that to Denise as well. And then the clinical impact of lab quality. And there's an article written on that we'll talk about. So next month, we're going to do quite a deep look at calciums, and then also take, if people want to send this first look. Pam, are you ready? Are you still with us? Poor girl that I left you. Pam still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Would you like to send in this 20 tests for next month to have a look at your data?
While you were offline, I was saying that I don't have access to data right now. I stepped away as a chemistry manager and working part-time helping labs out. But I do have a lab that maybe might be interested in this. I just don't have the ability to get their permission yet.
Okay, well, talk with them and get in touch with us. We have an SOP created for how to send the data, and actually we're moving from that to look at all of your raw data. We started having labs just send us their means and SDs, and then discovered that very often there are split data populations in there, so the means and SDs are meaningless. So we need to look at the raw data, and we need the raw data to see when people are getting QC flags. So you just send us the raw data, however you have it, we crunch it and send you back something that makes a whole lot of sense. Your topics, case studies, focus for next month. Anybody got any other burning questions? And that's what I want to talk about: clinical consequences of an abnormal calcium. What are the healthcare costs of a falsely high calcium? What are the healthcare costs of a falsely abnormal low calcium? What are the healthcare costs of a falsely normal calcium? And the big question, who cares? It doesn't benefit the lab, but it benefits the institution and it benefits the patients. And that's who you're here to serve. So it benefits the lab by making you, serve your customers better, which is why you exist. What's the best reference for those ins and out patients? What would you do about the difference in reference intervals? And we may call in some expert advice from elsewhere. So to finish up on time, even though I left you for a while, this is our ambition in life, is to increase the amount of risk management, reduce the patient risk of harm, and reduce the lab time and cost of quality control. And we're getting there. By next month, we should have live software to show you and live courses to show you. So it's the old curve. It's a steep curve, but we're getting there. I thank you for your patience, and I do. It was not when I went between the software programs, and I'm at a different site where I don't, and at my home, I blip for a few seconds. I never go offline like that. So anyway, with apologies and thanks, we'll wrap it up for this week. Anybody got any closing comments or questions?
Just since you missed it, Zoe, I did find that chapter on the peer data that you sent. I guess it was just really only a month ago. So I'll look through that and let you know if I have any questions.
Right. See, that's one of the things you could have done with those 20 hours saved from false positives.
Right, exactly.
All righty. Okay. Thank you so much, folks. And
Thank you.
Next month we'll have a new policy, Sherry, on if I go offline, phone me.
All right.
Okay.
We'll have replay up within the next day or two, and we'll get that out by email. Denise, I will also be going through the transcript and getting all the action items dealt with, including sending you the way for that other lab group to be able to sign up and get their NDAs in place. And then just remember, we've got the LabLogicInnovators.com where you can go to the events page and go ahead and register for everything. You can put us on your calendar for the year if you like. And we appreciate everybody's patience as we work through our glitchiness.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everybody.
You too.
Bye-bye.